John Warren, publisher of the San Diego Voice and Viewpoint newspaper, coming to you with our program from the desk of the editor. This is an open mic situation that we do in conjunction with GOD Radio 1, Dr. Leonard Thompson. As I remind you each week, the Voice and Viewpoint is San Diego's oldest and only African American publication, covering 89 zip codes, 17 cities, the unincorporated areas of the county. Available online. You can download the app in the Google or Apple store. Available by mail. Available single copy over the counter, retail sales, and newsstands. And so our slogan has always been a people without a voice cannot be heard, and that we are here serving San Diego's African and African American communities, though we are inclusive of all of San Diego. So we are very glad that you're joining us this evening, and I'd like to have you welcome Dr. Leonard Thompson, our partner and co-host.
Well, Dr. Warren, I am excited about being here with you on this evening. So much is going on in our communities and around the world, and you know how they say we might as well just get straight on into it and make sure that we answer the questions. We want people to know that you can call in at 858-251-6111, 858-251-6111. If you want to join the conversation now, please remember that this is a question, but it's not for you to come on and do a whole dissertation. It is about you getting in, asking the question, and become a part of the conversation. With that being said, Dr. Warren, so much is happening. Are we going to run out of money?
No, I don't think we're going to run out of money, Dr. Thompson. I don't know what the deal finally looks like. As we were preparing for this evening, the vote was up to 186. It really takes 218 votes to be the majority. Mm-hmm. We know that the Republicans are going to fall away, some of the conservative rights, and some of the progressive, that would be those Democrats that are considered to the left, will fall away. We know that Social Security and Medicare are intact. There was some agreement on a work requirement in exchange for food. That's something that people are very upset about. We know that the Defense Department's budget was not cut. Some people are upset about that. I think that's a very significant move considering how far behind we are falling. We have fallen globally behind people like China and even Japan, which is not even supposed to have a military entity after the World War II scenario, where we were by law supposed to be their primary protector. Now I believe they have probably the third largest navy in the world. Russia is really depleting a lot of things. North Korea has done so many tests, and they have now the potential to put a nuclear warhead on a missile that can reach the United States, and that was always their goal as a bargaining chip against us. And Iran is still pursuing their visions and dreams, and we made all kind of promises that we wouldn't let Iran get armed. Israel has made it very clear that it would not permit it, and it wouldn't wait for us. So we could have a situation at any day that Israel launches an attack against Iran because they think Iran is there. Iran is not interested in any three-state solution. Their position is that Israel has to be wiped off the face of the earth, and this like goes back some 5,000 years. So we have a lot of issues going on internationally. I hope it didn't go unnoticed that China recently refused to engage in a meeting with our military people, and that's a very significant step as they are accelerating their preparedness for war. They have done some combative maneuvers in international waters off of Taiwan. They have claimed waters that don't belong to them as their territory, and they are building man-made islands that are capable of being landing strips out there and capable of being military posts with some housing. So a lot of people are spending dollars in terms of warfare. You know, Russia has outstripped us in terms of icebreakers. They have 3 nuclear icebreakers, I believe, that are so key to what happens in the Arctic area north of Alaska, because they're great oil deposits there, and they have the capability. our ships are old and outdated, and we haven't moved in the direction as we should. And so the American people don't seem to be capable of coalescing around a sense of national unity the way these other countries have. And that could be an Achilles' heels as we get all kinds of warnings. In the past couple of weeks, and I know I'm just kind of giving you a shopping list here. We've had General Brown, who is a four-star general, commander of the Air Force, a member of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He has become the first Air Force general to head up the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and probably the second black general behind Colin Powell. And he is a progressive person who was very vocal during the George Floyd situation about what was happening and the whole race issue, and he didn't bite his tongue. And so it's very significant that we have movements going on all around us. We're a few days beyond the anniversary of the George Floyd murder, and at the same time that we have that, we had just a few weeks ago the murder of George Neely on the subway by Daniel Penny, a white guy who is being referred to constantly as an ex-Marine when it wasn't about him being a Marine. It was about him being a white boy on a train, killing a black man. It took weeks after the coroner found homicide as a cause of death to get him arrested in New York. And as far as I know, the people who helped hold Neely down, who was really not big enough to be a threat to any of them, he was just looking for food, they haven't been charged. And so we have all of these things going on, Dr. Thompson. And then today, we finally had a settlement in the opioid addiction case with Purdue Pharma, where this family who produced OxyContin and have cost over 500,000 people their lives since, I guess, 2019 or going back before. They settled this lawsuit for $6 billion. People in the country are very upset that in addition to settling it, they filed bankruptcy. Purdue Pharma's gone away, but people are upset that they are still wealthy. They're still billionaires. They had approximately $12 billion, so they gave away half of their net worth just to make the settlement. So we got all of these things that might not seem to impact us, but they do. So I will pause there, and I would hope if anyone has questions or comments, it is so important that we keep up with all of these issues. And that's why the Voice and Viewpoint takes the old Paul Harvey approach, that we give you the rest of the story. One more thing I do want to mention that's important. AP put out a story this week talking about the choices that Gavin Newsom has in terms of replacing Dianne Feinstein if she steps down, which she probably will, because between shingles and dementia and being almost 90, I think she's fighting a dead battle there, trying to hang on. But then they started suggesting people. I mean, they're talking about Oprah Winfrey. Oprah Winfrey has no business being appointed a senator. I don't care how famous she is. This is not a popularity contest, okay? And then you got Adam Schiff, who was a member of the January 6th committee. Well, he's a great lawyer, but that doesn't give him a rite of passage. But the one person that should have been appointed before Padilla was Barbara Lee. Barbara Lee, who is a member of Congress, Barbara Lee, who served in the California Assembly and the State Senate, Barbara Lee, who's a founder of the Black Caucus in the state legislature, who was chief of staff to Ron Dellum. She and I worked together on the Hill 50-some years ago. Barbara Lee has paid her dues in California, and she should be. And I would like to suggest that if Dianne steps down, which will give the person appointed a step up, if Gavin Newsom does not appoint Barbara Lee to that position, then every black woman and every black person who votes needs to make a decision that that's the end of his political career, because he wouldn't be where he is without the black vote, and especially without the black female vote, when he promised when Kamala Harris became vice president that he would replace her with a black woman. and he is not. He didn't keep that promise as he should have, and I think he's wiggling on it at this point. And so I think this is a reminder to us, whether it's Gavin Newsom or Joe Biden, that people are liberal. And we used to have a saying at Howard that a liberal is a person whose interest is not at stake.
Mhm.
All right, and that people become conservative when they have something to conserve. And so we need to be conservative with our votes now.
Yeah, and I'm a big supporter of Barbara Lee. I think that she is the person, the right person for the right time. She should have been in there currently. But I do say to Governor Newsom that it is very important that you, how they say, tread on this very carefully. Think on this, because this could be the difference between you remaining governor and that be your last post that you have, or for you to have eligibility to be even looking at becoming a presidential candidate. That is going to be because basically all we have is your word. And if your word means nothing to us, then we can't hear your word anymore when you decide to run for president.
No, and that's the next thing for him, because he would have termed out in terms of being able to be governor. So it's, where does he go next?
Yeah.
Okay. And some governors, now I don't want to see him do this, but just to show you how the system is designed, when vacancies have occurred in the Senate, some governors in the past have resigned their governorship with the agreement that the lieutenant governor stepping up to become governor would then appoint that person to the Senate to give them a jump start.
Yeah.
Okay, but we don't want to see these games being played. We want to see this situation work out the way it should.
Yeah, and I think that, like you said about our vote, we need to really, really, just as we are conservative about other things and take pride in certain things, we literally need to value the power of our vote and not just haphazardly give our vote to people that don't value the vote that we're bringing in. If we looked at our vote as dollars, see, this is very simple, Dr. Warren. If you owe $10,000 in rent, you know what I'm saying, and you got $8,000, and you put $8,000 and you give it to the landlord, and the landlord accepts your $8,000, you're still late on your rent because you're short $2,000. So you still can be evicted. But when you have the African American vote, that $2,000 or that $3,000 that you need to take you over to get you to the next one, that is the decisive factor. And in every race to date, everybody has had about 80% of what they needed, or even 90% of what they needed. But they needed the African American vote to get that over that 11% that they needed to win. So we as African Americans, this is not racial, this is nothing more than saying value your vote. We as African Americans need to value the power of our vote, and just don't give it out just because somebody has a good hairdo or because they're rich or they have cliches and sayings. Don't give it out just because you said, well, the economy was better when the orange man was in power. Because see, if you understand politics, and I want to be very clear, if you understand politics, the first 2 years of anybody's presidency is the remnants of the president before.
That's true.
So when we start having bad things happen and everything else, Joe Biden inherited the remnants of the president before. So those that thought that Donald Trump did so well, that was because of Joe Biden and Obama.
Well, I think people know Donald Trump didn't do all that well, and the proof in that is the extent to which all of the Trumpeters have lost elections in the past 2 years and are still going. The greatest danger is that Trump could become president again, because even with his trial starting next March in the New York case, if he's convicted, the trial could run for some time. But unless we have a felony conviction against him, he can still be president. And he's promising people right now that he's going to pardon all these people who are getting these sentences. And so I think we need to be aware of that. We also need to look at the strategy that's underway here. Okay,
but I do have to say, I really enjoy his theme song this year. His theme song is "It Wasn't Me." But they said, but they caught you on camera. It wasn't me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? We saw it wasn't me. And he says it with so much conviction that there are people out there that even though they see a video, they got a tinker tape, they got it written down, and they got evidence. He'll say it's not me, and they say it wasn't him.
And because he believes, once he says something, he believes it after he says it. And he believes it 100%. And so we're in a dangerous point. But I want to make an observation based on what you were saying. You know, right now people are beginning, who are running for office on the Republican slate, they're beginning to make their way to Iowa. And Iowa is like the middle of America, heartland. You know, Obama's grandparents come from Kansas. And in those places, the reason candidates go out of their way to those areas is because those people will listen to them. They invite them in. They have dinner and coffee and snacks and stuff. But at the same time, they won't make commitments, okay? And they hold their votes. Black people can learn from that because we are the first, when somebody comes to run and asks us for a vote, we are the first to commit without getting anything in return. And so if they got our vote in their hip pocket, now they're out trying to make deals with other people, and you still don't get nothing because you gave your stuff away for free.
And Dr. Warren, can I just encourage everybody, stop rushing out to take photo ops.
Please.
Stop rushing out to take photo ops. Again, it's not historical. You might say, look at me and the president, but the real true factor, and I want to say this, you could have all the pictures you want of every celebrity, of every power broker, and everything else. But until you got cell numbers and be able to call them and actually have a real conversation and get some results from them, you are just part of the atmosphere. You are not a change maker. So we are pushing to become change makers. You know, Dr. Warren, both you and I, we interview people all the time, but we don't look at them as our friends.
Oh, no.
Those people that are our friends will say, here's my cell number. Anytime you need me, call me. And then when we call them, they pick up. Other than that, you know, we're just acquaintances.
Well, and I have a position, Dr. Thompson, when people decide to run for office and they call me and they want to sit down and talk, and I say, about what? I haven't seen you in any news-making event contribution to the community. Now you want to come and give me the snow job about what you're going to do. No, I'm not interested. We don't have to go out like that. And I have a concern as we move closer to local stuff.
But let me say this,
Yeah.
but I do want to say, and if you do get a meeting with any of the news outlets that are representing the people of color and us African Americans, and you get the meeting and you make promises, we will hold you accountable for those promises. And if you don't follow through, Sarah Jacobs, then when the elections come, then we will not come out, and you don't have to call us anymore because your track record after we got you somewhere said that you don't really want to have that support.
Well, you know, you're being kind. Sarah Jacobs should have never been elected in the first place. And the only reason that I have supported her through the last two elections, and I said it each time, is because it was my desire to see the Democrats try to retain control of the House of Representatives, which would allow the kind of bills that we needed and would have avoided this kind of foolishness that we're up against. The only reason of looking to support. And look, we lost by 5 votes. There were at least 5 votes in Northern California that we should have had as a blue state that went red. And that's it's so weak that McCarthy took 15 votes. He's from Bakersfield. Who ever even heard of Bakersfield outside of California? And he's up there now the speaker because we didn't take the stuff seriously.
Yeah.
And so even as we look at the local races that are beginning to come, it's not about who's running. And Black Men and Women United, as you know, we had this discussion this week. We want to do a town hall meeting that talks about the significance of voting. Now, I'm not sure how many people we'll get because we still have folks who, if they don't see how they benefit directly, they don't care about what the rest of the picture is. And those are the same people who come to me when somebody calls them the N-word or they get discriminated against. They come talking about, oh, I've been discriminated against. And I'm saying, why are you telling us? You ain't done nothing for nobody, so nobody owes you anything.
Yeah.
You know?
And here's the thing. It ultimately comes down to the rights that people have fought for, that they died for, to not only be inclusive, but also to be helping to be a part of decision making. because we have those equal rights. Now, we cannot take the time to squander away. It's just like in church. We could go back and I look at our vote almost like people and how they look at church now. People don't value the relationship with God that they did back in the day, when there was real struggle and people were really fighting. They don't value the vote because they have not had to struggle. So we as elders and we as leaders have to help them to understand the struggle, and we have to take responsibility because, like, I would say that not all of us, but a great majority of us tried to make it so much easier on our children that we did not give them the tools and the experience for them to value where they have and what they have. And so now we're trying to get them, we're trying to regroup and trying to get them to see. And, I had a real unique conversation at Comba Fest with Daryl Charles. And I was saying, I want to do something this summer for young people. Let's do a dance. Let's do something to bring them together. And he said, you know what, man? He said, I hate to say it, but if you want to make a difference now, you got to be on the elementary school level, because the junior high school and the high schools, they've already made decision.
Yes.
And they're not totally gone, but it is, we got to start off with the babies all over again to make the transition, and it is going to take time.
Well, I just interesting you mentioned Daryl Charles, and he has those great, beautiful black chicken shack trucks. Mm-hmm. And you and I remember almost 20 years ago when Daryl came to Black Men United. We were doing those Saturday morning meetings, and he expressed the interest in doing this. And some of us got together and helped him get the first truck that he had to get him started. And support him, because that's what we were about in terms of helping each other. And it's good to see that kind of success story multiply. But he's so right, because the problem, and you see it with kids, you've got children raising children. You have people who don't understand about parenting, and nothing is worse than having a black parent who doesn't understand parenting, who's setting a poor role model and example. I remember over some 25 years ago when my son was playing Pop Warner football, and I first started going to a game, and I was shocked to see mothers and fathers who were gangbangers. Mm-hmm. They were gangbangers, mm-hmm. and the kids were growing up in a family of gangbangers. Yep. It was predetermined what color they were going to wear and all mm-hmm. of that, and everything was GD and MF and the whole bit. So what more could they do? They were preparing them for what we call the self-fulfilling prophecy. Yeah. And it took, and Dr. Warren, you played a major role in the advocacy program when it came to San Diego Unified School District, along with many other people, the Urban League, the NAACP. You were a part of advisories and everything else. But the one thing that we found out, I was stationed at Knox. I was one of the 4 men. And one of the things that we found out is that if we touch the spirit of the young people, we can also touch the spirits of the parents. Yeah. And one of the things, and I remember Miss Fawcett, may she rest in heaven, she was such an amazing administrator. And I told her I wanted to have a parent meeting. And she said, well, Lynn, I just wanted to help you to understand that you're only going to get about 5-10 parents because they just don't come out and support. And I said, okay, but can I have a parent meeting? She said, yes. And I called all 350 parents of my boys. I called each and every one of them. And surprisingly, that 90% of them were all mothers. Mm-hmm. And so my first meeting, I had almost 200 parents there. See? And my principal said, what did you do different? And I said, there was a man that called their house respectfully, not complaining, and invited them to come out. And I offered them childcare and dinner, for their family. And I said the meeting was going to last 1 hour. Well, that you are so right, Dr. Thompson. And, 40 years ago, I did something just like that. When I was a young school board member, I had a lot of single parents, mothers in my schools. I had 35 schools in my district. Mm-hmm. People wouldn't come out to PTA meetings. And what I did was I found out that Frederick Douglass had a home on Capitol Hill. I got access to that home and held a wine and cheese there for the parents. and they all showed up.
Mm-hmm.
They packed the place out.
Mm-hmm.
And then I did the same thing you did. I always kept meetings to an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And when we had to talk about closing schools, I had them meet once a week for 2 years, rotate the chairmanship among the group.
Mm-hmm.
And when it came time to close them, it turns out that the school closing vote came 2 weeks before my next election.
Mm-hmm.
And all my opponents were cheering that they knew they were going to get me because I had at least 5 of our 25 schools on the list. And when the vote came, all of the parents came and agreed with me on closing the schools. They didn't understand that these parents had been worked through alternatives for 2 years, knowing what to do. And see, we don't have that kind of involvement. Let us say this in fairness. There are some good parents in San Diego. There are some good people. I think of folks like Lisa Evans who care about kids. I think about people when I look at Precious Jackson Hubbard. I'm so proud when we look at her history from when she was a student and how she struggled, and she just got her doctorate degree as an educator. And so, yeah, there's a lot of good in what we're doing, and we don't praise the good enough, but let's not forsake what we can get done with the rest.
Yeah, and the reason why I was sharing all of this in line with what you're saying is that I used to talk to my male fathers and the mothers that were also involved with gangs, and I said, do you want a better life for your child? And I said, or do you want them to go down the same road you're going in? And 90% of them said, I want them to have better. I said, when you come to the school, you cannot wear your colors.
Yes.
You cannot wear your flags. When
Right.
you come to the school, I need you to be a parent.
Right.
And literally, I got a little kickback. But what I found out is that when you involve them, we do big festivals, like multicultural festivals, and I'll say, okay, members of the Sendo mob, y'all got this area over here. I need y'all to secure this area, clean this area. Before I knew it, we didn't even have to get volunteers in. The parents would be ready to volunteer, ready to secure. We went from having our school tagged every weekend to 7 years of no tagging.
See?
Because the parents would say, if somebody tagged the school, we're going to come get you and make you repaint it.
But see, the people, they need the love and the care, Leonard, and it's all over the country. You know, when my wife was the director of the Watts Senior Center, back when things were so bad in L.A., she had the vision of putting a rose garden in the middle of Watts. And everybody laughed and say, oh, they ain't going to let no flowers grow. They ain't going to kill. But she got that garden, and it's on the National Register, and it's there today. And the community protects the garden. They don't let people go out and steal the roses or anything because people were shown some love and some support. And so we've got to step outside of self at this point. And I just want to do a shout out to Black Men and Women United, those people who meet every week with you and I and others, and we get on that call and we talk about how we can help and what the issues are in the community. And we really want to open it up. As far as we're concerned, if you're Black, you're a member. But we can't just list our link because we'll get all the wrong people there. So you have to take the step to move by calling us to get on the list.
Well, one of the things I think that people have to understand about Black Men and Women United, it was designed to be a safe space for us to have real conversations about things that are affecting us as African Americans and us as the African and African American people, without being judged, without people thinking that we were being racist or any of that stuff. Having real conversations and literally bringing on people to see what were real issues. So there, sometimes in Black Men and Women United, we're dealing with issues just among ourselves.
Yes.
In our own community, and we're trying to figure it out and how we can do it. Just the other week, we had a major thing happen with one of our iconic people, and at the end of the day, it was like, okay, you three stay on the line. We're gonna work this out, and literally within a day and a half, what was seemed to be a tragic thing was literally handled.
Right.
But the difference is that when you get involved with these type of organizations, you don't just come just to benefit. You come to see how you can get actively involved and how you can support. It's like I love the whole support we're doing with Porter. And so I hit up Sister Francine because she said, Black Men and Women United, I need for you guys to drop $10 so we can do this pizza party.
Right.
So I called her up and I
money.
said, you got Venmo, Zelle, let me send you the money right now. She looked at me, she said, no, brother, I know you got some cookies coming down the way. You grab me those cookies, I'll take care of your 10.
Right.
But we have those type of conversations, And the crazy thing about it is it's expanding. It's expanding the reach of how we can serve people. And before things become a major problem, many times we're able to work it out.
And we should let people know, Dr. Thompson, when we talk about that, that you say people say, "Well, I've been there to 20 years, and what have you done?" Well, we have been a part of life for 20 years. We've had people get older, die, move away, become incapacitated. We've had all these things happen, and yet in the midst of it, we have still continue to come together. And no, we're not racist. I mean, because we invite people on and give them a designated time if they want to come and speak. But you just can't show up and do your infomercial with total disregard and disrespect for what we're doing and who we are, and you don't care. You just need another place for an outlet.
Well, let's. We literally have to give some parameters, and what I mean by that is when you're actively a part of Black Men and Women United, you are able to share about things that you're involved in that you know that we want to be involved in. What we don't want is that you only come when you have an event or you want to talk about it. You need to be before us, or you're looking for sponsors or whatever, because and I have to say it, there's a ton of money on the line every week that can invest and can do it, but it has to be the right. We want you to come, and even if you come in and just listen, even if you come in and Pastor Guzman said, I want to be on the list. Pastor Guzman, we might say, we need you to pray. You know what I'm saying? Everybody has an active participation in it. We don't want it just to become a place where you come and only want to get, but we want people to come that also are willing to give and be a part of it, because it is how we service each other. You know what I'm saying? And there are Christians, there are Muslims, there are people that are have a different faith walk. You know what I'm saying? There are people that are from politics. There's people that are major in business. And guess what? We don't always agree.
No, we don't always agree, but we agree to disagree respectfully. And the key is that in our mission statement, we decide to seek to serve rather than to be served. And so you have to have a heart of service, and you get blessed for doing it. And, no, we don't have a nonprofit. We don't have a bank account. We don't have treasures. We did all of that in the first 5 years of Black Men United. We did focus groups and 5-year plans and had all kinds of things going. And we learned some very painful lessons about greed and how people will come in, offer contracts to buy you off and split you up and dilute what you're doing. And so we benefited. I'm so proud of what Black men did in terms of getting in our schools, being mentors. A lot of them have moved on. We had to fight the system to get permission. And we still have great things happening. Just the other day, the question came up about the task force in the DA's office. And I had to remind people that task force was created as a result of the DA's visitation with Black Men and Women United, because we had parents who were filing complaints in terms of how they were being treated disrespectfully by school staff, and nobody was doing anything about it.
Well, I want to say, and I want to give this to everybody, because I know some people might come back and say, well, that's not, when the DA and people come to these meetings and they see the influencers that are in the room, it has a great impact on why things are being developed. And when we say certain things, it's because there are also those side meetings where they come in and say, okay, now, this is what I'm proposing, this is what I'm thinking, where are you all at on this? Because, again, once you propose something as in being in office or whatever, it's a proposal. But you then have to have the support of community people and everybody else to go forth, or is this a proposal that's still going to go up with much opposition? So I'm trying to make sure that people really, really understand that this is a community effort, but people come. From the mayor to everybody. They come because they have an opportunity to talk to some of the best and brightest. And we're going to continue to talk about this because, again, African-American people, especially in California, are getting the most hate crimes still in the state of California. We're still seeing disparities that are just unfair, and we have to be okay with having those difficult conversations unapologetically. And I think that's what, when we get to the Black Men and Women United, and granted, there have been times that it's been heated, but at the same point, I always tell people, if you are in a family and y'all never have an argument, then I would venture to say that y'all not being real.
Hell yeah. There's got to be issues if you're there.
Yeah.
There got to be issues. But Dr. Thompson, also, in as we move through so many things, I want to say a word about an editorial that I did this week that deals with the whole idea of summer youth employment.
Mm-hmm.
And this has been a pet peeve of mine for many years because I got my first break at the age of 17 in a summer youth program that opened the doors for me to go work on Capitol Hill. And that was a time during which Robert Kennedy was involved, and it was also a time during which there was a group in America called the Small Business Alliance. And they got together and created this thing that we got to put these inner city kids in positions of exposure. And so we have had many years of this time of year where people talked about jobs for our kids, workforce partnership pretended to be interested in our kids and had their own little game plan, and we aren't through with them yet because we got to deal with those people. And so I have been advocating for a long time and start writing some 2 years ago, and someone might say this is self-serving, but you're entitled to your opinion. I started writing about how we need a youth employment program in San Diego that's a part of the policy of this city, that there be emphasis on employment of youth so that in between the ages of 16 and 24, as we did under seat of the Neighborhood Youth Corps 40 years ago, we have jobs. But I wanted to see more like the Neighborhood Youth Corps where jobs were year-round, they were part-time. There are 12 departments, I think, within the city. I suggested that each department should build into its budget at least 4 to 8 hours a week to start the exposure for these young people, and that there should be a component within HR for bringing them in and processing them, and that there should be transportation to accommodate that because it didn't make sense for kids to have jobs and they had to use up all their money for traveling. Well, I salute Mayor Todd Gloria, who, because of a $3 million grant, Empower and employment effort, that they have over 1,000 jobs they're trying to make available. A few hundred young people have been placed. Some of the jobs are career. And I encourage people as we come out of school, because not only are students graduating, but adults many times are making life changes at this time of year. And I've encouraged people to go to the website for the city of San Diego, go to the HR. There are all kinds of career jobs. The city's got jobs that hadn't been able to fill, and that's why they held a job fair not long ago. And the icing on the cake was the fact that Sandag came up with a grant that every young person 18 years old and younger can ride free on the trolley or the buses in terms of public transportation. And so to me, that's a fulfillment and part of the dream. Now what has to happen is the community has to go and look for these jobs. It's not going to come to your house. It's not going to come to your door. You got to get off that couch. You got to get out there and be brave enough to knock. The word says you have not because you ask not. And I'm encouraging parents to encourage their children if they're of that age and they're not working. There's a lot laying around the house. You shouldn't be. You ought to have a job, and you need to push them out there, and you can get the job for them. I will not hire a person whose mama or daddy comes and asks me to give them a job. If they don't care enough for a job to come ask themselves, they don't need to be working for you.
Now, one of our participants, Pastor Guzman, said, "I believe that we are headed for a racial war." What is your thoughts on that?
I think we could be headed for one, Pastor, and it would be very unfortunate since we are the least armed and the least prepared for it. Your observation is why people are so set on supporting Trump. It's why the sales of AK-47s and automatic weapons are up. If you've seen billboards, there's another gun fair coming back after years of not being here. If you've ever been to, and probably not, But I've been to those gun fairs, and one of the biggest sales that the biggest uh, groups buying guns are women, white women. They buy most of the automatic weapons. And the next big sale at gun fairs is the equipment that allows you to make your own bullets, from the casings to the scales and the weight and the whole bit. And so many of the people who live outside of the city limits, the rural areas, that's what they do. They have stockpiled weapons, and they're ready. And the radical right is sowing the idea of the great white replacement, and the idea that all the people of color coming to this country are here to replace white folks, and that you're going to have to fight. This is why the conservative right wanted the default. The default would play into their hands as they seek to push for the collapse of America, so that they can rise up as an armed entity, and with the idea that they can take over the country. And there's no accident when you look at the people still being tried for January 6th, that a couple of them have been police officers that were in cahoots with the folks who were doing the rioting. And many of us already knew that, based on the information that the rioters had, that they had inside help in terms of it. And so, yes, all of these elements suggest race war, because whites feel they're losing ground. They're not having children the way other people are. There was a time that they imported babies from Armenia, any European white country. They had higher quotas. They were adopting. That's not there. Here on the West Coast, the Latino population is growing faster than any other group. Some people say that Mexico is taking back America one baby at a time. And so all of this is very real as people are intimidated. The biggest thing that highlights the fear is a situation where the 85-year-old white man shot that boy through the door just because he knocked on his door, he had the wrong house looking for his brother. Or if you look at what Ahmaud Arbery, what happened there, with those people running him down just because he was jogging in a neighborhood they didn't think he belonged in. And the whole idea, we've had that situation right here in San Diego. We've had people, I remember when Langley Powell was here, he was president of San Diego Transit. He lived downtown. And he told me he went out jogging in the morning, and the harbor police would stop him every day asking what was he doing. And of course, he used to be a prize fighter in the Navy, in the Army. I was so afraid Langley was going to get locked up or killed, because he was not nice to him in terms of, none of your business what I'm doing here. So we've got issues, folks, and some of it we have to watch how we handle. Just recently, I was sent a couple of clips about a police encounter, and I know this is going to upset some folks. And yes, the police are doing more pullover and stops in southeastern San Diego. Yes, the cops are rude and they're wrong. But the thing that concerned me about it was the response to the people who had been pulled over, where one person who is filming is calling the officer a bunch of bitches, and there's this combative attitude. And I don't know how you can be combative with somebody who's got a Glock on their side, and the phones to call in enough help to stop it. The last poets used to say, it's all right to die for a cause, but not just because.
Yeah, just because. Yeah.
So we could have this, and so we're working not to have it, but at the same time, as Malcolm suggested, we need to be prepared to defend ourselves without aggressively going out to starting warfare.
Yeah, and I think one of the things about it is that we have to use wisdom. And one of the things that I'm looking to do this summer is to do a forum about racism in the church, and bringing an African-American pastor, a white pastor, an Asian pastor, and a Latino pastor. And let's talk about how we can begin to address racism in the church, the division in the church, because, again, we are seeing religion convoluted with politics, and biblically it makes no sense. So if we're reading from the same King James Bible, translated to the New King James, translated to the Living Bible, to the Amplified Bible, I'm just trying to figure out where in the Bible that it say that racism is okay. And to mistreat people based on their color or based on their economic standing or anything. Where is that in the Word of God? And yeah,
You know what, Dr. Thompson? I think that's so important. And when you do this conference, I hope Jesus is invited to be there as well. But the late Fred Price did 4 volumes on race, racism, race and racism and religion. And in that, he dealt with this issue of how racism is mishandled in the scripture. And, yeah, and a lot of people left the church, Crenshaw, as a result of it. He paid for it himself. At one point, the people who did the Dates Bible went and got Carlton Pearson to write to Fred. Big mistake. And Carlton was going to be their mouthpiece. And when Fred finished with them through this series, they made the promise to go back and do some editing in their Bible, because the Dates Bible is one of the most thorough study Bibles that exist, and yet is so full of racism and racist elements. And race has never really been handled appropriately in the church. First of all, if Christ is in the church, there's no room for race in the first place. Okay? And where God is, race can't be a factor. You know, Malcolm learned that when he went to Mecca and saw blue-eyed blonde believers like him, and race was not a factor. And so we have people who are engaged in religious tradition, and tradition that they call religion, and race comes into it. One of the biggest elements of racism in the church was always communion service, okay? Because if truth be told, the Catholic Church had the communion element that was being placed on people's tongues, and initially they used to, when the church was all white, they would pass the cup, let the parishioner drink, the priest would wipe the cup. The Episcopal Church, being linked with the Catholic Church in terms of structure, did the same thing. But then when this race thing got into it, and people started putting pressure on it, Peter Claver came into the Catholic Church, and all of these things happened, people got real upset. And what they did was they had to change the ritual so that the priest would dip the wafer in the cup and the person would stick out their tongue as opposed to them drinking. And so racism came to church with the people who came to church. You know, and that's the part we got to understand. People bring to church their own beliefs and prejudice and all of their own elements. And yeah, we have some mega churches where, you know, it's amazing in San Diego how many black people are in integrated churches like Shadow Mountain and different churches. I mean, my religious experience in California was in a large part in integrated worship. And I came out of a church in D.C. that was like that, where the first time I went into a church with a white pastor, I said, ain't no way in this world he can tell me anything. And yet this man became a friend. So we need to address that. We almost did when the attack came on Mount Airy, you remember?
Yeah.
And the white pastors came and joined in because that whole gay movement was moving against the church over the issue of the school, which was a private school in the first place with no public funds, and it had a right to restrict attendance the way they wanted to. So yeah, we don't talk enough, and that's one of the things that I miss that exist on the East Coast, where there are these gatherings, which we used to call them. 20 years ago, they were called gatherings, and people got together in circles, and they just had conversation.
Yeah.
And they didn't come for a special reason with an agenda. They just came to have a cup of coffee and talk.
Yeah.
We need to return to that. And I know I'm excited about making that possible at Eagle's Nest at any time a group of people want to come in and sit. And we have used it before. The last time we did it was during the local organizing committees that came out of the Million Man March. And we made the church available to people at no cost to participate in that. So, yes.
Well, you know, one of the things is that there's so many things that now that the pandemic is not over, but it's subsiding, and we're learning to live with COVID. You know, I'm looking forward to, on the political front, bringing back business, grits, and politics.
Yes.
You know, I think that that's a great forum. I think that is a forum that could take the space of what used to be the Catfish Club.
Yes.
You know, so that we can have real dialogue and things of that nature. I think that we have to have the coffee stops and us just getting together and talking. And I always tell people that's what black men and women is like. It's virtual. It's virtual, but we just get together, and a lot of us are drinking coffee. Dr. Warren, I see you sipping on something
Oh,
and,
yeah.
and getting a little snack in,
Yeah.
but we're there to have those dialogues, and it allows those that can't come to the physical location to actually get involved.
Well, we plan to return to biscuit grits and politics. As you know, you were a prime mover in it. We had great success with it. I'm projecting that we'll probably be ready for it between August and September. And there's a lot of planning that we have to do because clearly from our health advisor, Dr. Robinson, Jerome Robinson, the issues are going to be there with the virus. It's just going to keep mutating. It becomes a matter of how safe can we gather, how many people can we allow in the room. And we have discovered from doing the gala that we can do a situation that both streams and limits the number of people that actually come into the facility. And so we're going to be looking at how to structure that and return to that format.
Okay. Well, one of the things about it, again, the key word here, and even on this program, you're going to see more dialogue about top subjects. You're going to see additional guests that are going to be coming in, and we're just going to have some real conversation. I think that, when we come in and we talk about from the desk of the editor, there's so much things that are happening. Like I asked Dr. Warren today, will we go bankrupt? Are they going to get a deal or not going to get a deal? Some of it is opinionated, and some of it is really just the facts. We can't afford to default.
If I could take a minute to say something about that, Dr. Thompson, because I've heard in the news in recent days, a lot of people are now complaining about the bankruptcy statutes and how these people seem to be getting off. And it kind of tickled me because bankruptcy was one of the things that I volunteered to do when I became a law clerk many years ago with city attorney. And I had a love for bankruptcy. And I got into it in a deep way. And here's something that most people don't understand about our judicial system. The American judicial system, let me use this example. If you have an airplane crash and say 300 people get killed, and all of these families want to file a wrongful death claim, okay? And they would be filing it in the federal court because people were from different places. The court system would set a cap on how much the total amount of money could be paid out across the board, just like the court has done in the Purdue situation here. And the reason for that is the system says that while we want to make you pay, we don't want to put you out of business. And see, that's the part that most people don't understand, that the system has an underlying philosophy of keeping the person whole. That's why you have the Chapter 11 filings that people can eliminate debt. About 25 years ago, we had a big situation where bankruptcy was being used to save people's homes, because if they were in foreclosure and you filed bankruptcy, then you could save your property. And so they started changing the laws. We had a situation where people were running up debt, and you had this 7-year period where debt could be forgiven in 7 years. Ironically, it comes straight out of Leviticus in terms of the concept of debt forgiveness in the Bible. And then people get a clean start. And so we need to understand how the system works and why it works. And we don't have to go back to school to get that. That kind of information is available among us. All we have to do is just show a willingness to hear and learn. And that's what I loved about old people when we were coming along, Dr. Thompson. They might not have had a high school diploma, but they read the paper, they listened to the news, and they gave great thought to what they saw happening around them, and they were informed people. And so we can reinstate that today if we can just back off of social media for a moment.
Well, and the funny thing is, I won't even say us backing off of social media. I think that it is using it in tandem with.
Yes, you're right.
The paper is that physical journey that you can see and that is tangible. You can go back to it. On social media, you get a lot of quick stuff.
Right.
And so we can get news out to you very quickly. But when you want to look at the full entire story, you want to go to that print. And the print is what really feeds the social media. Because
and you know what? You are so right, because if you watch to CNN or MSNBC, so much of what they say is quoting each day the Washington Post, the New York Times, they're quoting print because print's still putting the journalists out there to cover the stories. And that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to cover our stories in spite of some of the things that are happening.
Yeah. And that's the biggest thing that we want everybody to know is that as we move forward, this is going to be the generation and the time of real conversations. We are losing our elders and we're losing a lot of our history. I thank God that there's so many people that are interested in the history that they're starting to document it. They're starting to find ways to make sure that our young people learn more and more about it because, again, these stories can't continue to be told when our elders leave.
Right.
So we have to get the stories now. We have to document the stories now. And even what I'm very, very excited about, Dr. Warren, is that all of the voice and viewpoint at some point in the next 2 years are going to be put in digital format so
That's right.
people could go all the way back from the beginning of the voice and viewpoint and be able to see the stories and see how we got to where we are and to see what we say the people without a voice cannot be heard, what voices were heard.
And we're working on that every day. You're so right. And that's why even though the paper is available in print, you can, wherever you are now, you can pick it up online. You can download it. You can read it. Tomorrow's paper will be online by midday tomorrow.
Yeah.
This week's issue for the whole world to read. And we've got people all over the world reading it. So we're excited about what we're doing. We're excited about this program and this partnership. And we're going to really have some interesting people on here in the weeks ahead. But we would like to hear from you in terms of your thoughts, your ideas, if you're listening, if you're learning, if you're getting information. No programs, does well unless you hear from the people that are being served.
Well, one of the things I think a lot of people are listening in and tuning in, but I'm going to challenge you all. If you have a hot topic that you would like for us to discuss on From the Desk of the Editor, go ahead and send it to GODRadio1 at mandaterecords.com, GODRadio1 at mandaterecords.com, and we will get it into discussion because
Yes, we will.
we like hot topics. We like to see the things that are happening. And I tell you, when we begin to have real discussion, when we begin to challenge our thinking patterns, that's when we will see a true change.
Yes, we will. And no topic is too hot for us. We need you to know that. We don't owe allegiance to anyone that would stop us from talking about anything.
And with that being said, this is From the Desk of the Editor with Dr. John Warren. You all have a very, very blessed evening. God say the same. We'll see you this time next week, right here on GODRadio1.com.
Good night.